Manchester United beat Rangers by 2-0. They're going on a long journey in the not too distant future. They're off to the United States of America where they'll do their pre-season tour, but they played at Hampden Park at the weekend. A relatively one-sided game. I watched it actually. United used two teams in the match. Leny Yoro made his first start for the club just days after signing from Lille. I thought he was really promising. He came out with the ball confidently, passed it really well, crisp and sharp. Was a bit of an aura about the way that he carried himself. He held himself. He didn't have too much to do defensively, but what he did it well. And he is big. He is a huge lad.
Well, I remember speaking to Dean Saunders last week when this deal was going through, and he was suggesting that maybe he wouldn't go straight into the United first team. I think he probably will. I don't think United as a club are in a position at the moment where they can pay £50-odd million for a player and not put him straight into the first team. So I think they have signed him for the here and now as much as for the future. But you're right, it was a really encouraging debut. It may change the dynamic in terms of the ability to carry the ball out from the back, because United have not always been blessed with centre-backs who can do that. Amad Diallo caught the eye as well, and I know Erik ten Hag picked him out for special praise, and it's got to be competitive, isn't it, in those wide positions now? Marcus Rashford trying to get back to his best form, Jadon Sancho at the moment back in the building. But I think from what Ten Hag was saying, you look at the end of last season and you look at this pre-season so far, Ahmed, I think, is in the box seat to try and make a wide position his own. Well,
he scored the first goal of the game. He actually came very close with a free kick as well. And Mason Mount played well alongside him. They sort of dovetailed well for that first goal. The run that Mason Mount made meant that one of the midfield players who was tracking him was taken out of the way so that Ahmed could cut in from the left-hand side and then whip the ball into the near corner. It was a really good finish by him and an opportunity to stake a claim, as you say, for a first team place. But the main takeaway, I think, from Manchester United this weekend was another burst of an authority-asserting interview with a Dutch newspaper by Erik ten Hag, whose personal PR team, I think, are using the opportunity of the new contract, or the contract extension, it's not really a new contract, and the FA Cup win to underscore his position. He said that he had a confrontational conversation with Manchester United's executives last month over the direction of the team, with the Dutchman stating we should part ways if an agreement could not be reached. He met with club officials in Ibiza for talks over his future as manager after the Sir Jim Ratcliffe-led football department had considered numerous other candidates as potential replacement. He said on the Ibiza confrontation, if you can call it that, the argument they gave was brief. We looked at everything and put it all together, but we think we already have the best manager in-house. Then I did say, then we need to discuss some things and how we interact and collaborate. We had a good, honest, but also confrontational conversation about all that, as it should be at the very top. I gave my vision of the season on the situation at Manchester United, and I indicated which path we should take, in my opinion. You have to be very honest with each other about that. And then it's about, do you come together or not? I also told them, if you don't think that's the way, we should just part ways. He's letting the dressing room know, I think, that he's in charge.
And I think he had to do that because obviously it was so public, United's potential pursuit of a new manager. We all know that they spoke to Thomas Tuchel and Roberto De Zerbi and advisors acting on behalf of Mauricio Pochettino. So the players will know that as well. And I think if Ten Hag had came back and shown any kind of weakness, we know what footballers are like, we know what dressing room environments are like, they would have seized upon that. He also said in a separate interview that when he first came to the club, United hadn't won a trophy in 6 years. In the 2 years he's been there after Guardiola, we've won the most trophies in English football. We're in a strong position now. The newspapers have taken that as Ten Hag saying that only Pep Guardiola has made a bigger impact than him on English football over the past 2 years. I'm not sure he went quite as far as that, but I like this emboldened, empowered Ten Hag. It reminds me of his first season in charge when you remember his handling of the Cristiano Ronaldo situation. He looked like a manager who'd lost a bit of that aura last season. The dressing room was almost too big for him, it felt at times. So I'm happy that he's reasserting control. And listen, it may be pre-season optimism, but I'm hopeful. I think Manchester United and Ten Hag are going to have a better season than a lot of people are expecting, because let's be honest, a lot of people have already written him off as a failure.
It took a little bit of time to get the personnel in place, but I suppose it will take even more time for Ineos to make their mark in terms of recruitment. Yes, they've done some good things. They've sold some players for more money than maybe people would have anticipated. They've bought in Leny Yoro and Joshua Zirkzee already this summer. But in terms of changing the way that the whole club operates, it's going to take a little bit of time, isn't it? And there has to be a bit of patience.
Yeah, of course. I think when Ratcliffe came in, he said it could take 3 years to catch up with Manchester City. Maybe that was a little bit ambitious because the gap has become a chasm, but let's see how quickly they can close that gap. But you're right to point out the fact they're managing to get money in as well as signing players, because they've been notoriously bad sellers, United. I'm intrigued to see what they do with Casemiro, because I think he's somebody who definitely needs to be removed from the wage bill.
He started at the weekend.
Yeah, but really, unless he can get back to where he was in his first season, the Casemiro we saw last season looked like the Premier League was just too quick and too physical for him. I think Wan-Bissaka probably will leave. Interesting, this morning, Ten Hag has come out and said he wants McTominay to stay. He got 10 goals last season. That backs up what I wrote in the notebook last week. They actually, of all the players, they're looking to move on. McTominay probably not top of the list. So still plenty of time left in the window. Central midfield, I think, is their next priority. Ugarte is a target, and keep an eye on Rabiot as well, because he's someone they've flirted with before.
They've got to sell before they can buy another one.
Yeah, although Rabiot obviously is available on a free transfer.
But Stephen said the budget-wise with the wages is going to be quite high for that, especially if he's on a free transfer.
Yeah, so that's obviously the next priority. As you say, trim the wage bill. Casemiro to Saudi Arabia, Wan-Bissaka to West Ham, potentially. Harry Maguire has only got a year left on his contract. Obviously, they tried to sell him last summer. He in the end turned down that move to West Ham. No sign of him being offered a new deal, so he's one to keep an eye on as well. But they're getting business done early. It's only July the 22nd. The fact they've already got 2 signings in the building. They've sold Mason Greenwood. They've sold Camboire as well. I'm impressed with how quickly Ineos are getting to work in this window.
I think they quite like Harry Mass, the left back, 17 years of age. He played in the game at the weekend, quite progressive full-back, did well. Last year, you'll know that Kobbie Mainoo made his debut, but was playing more regularly in pre-season. They wanted to include him and got injured and didn't get a chance. I wonder whether or not he might be an option for them going forward, this young lad, just to be part of the squad this year, especially with extra commitments in the Europa League.
Well, that's something Ten Hag's not been afraid to do, and it's very much the Manchester United way. The United DNA is to invest in youth, to bring young players into the first team, and actually the average age of the squad is going to be quite low, isn't it, next season? We expect Mainoo to be a regular starter in midfield. Garnacho was last season. Højlund obviously is certainly not anywhere near the veteran stage of his career. Yoro coming in at just 18 years of age as well. What's Xerxes, 22?
23, I think, yeah.
23, so... Yeah, obviously you have to make allowances for the fact young players can make mistakes, so it's not going to be foolproof from a United perspective. But I think as long as they're giving youngsters a chance, they're playing progressive football, they've got an identity which they didn't really have last season, I think the United fans will be patient.
Yeah, looking forward to a big season in the Premier League. Our first game is Manchester United against Fulham. It's live on talkSPORT. When we come back in the next few